Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinsey. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I have my very good friend and fellow hacker, Alex, on to answer your hacking-related questions. And I will also point out that I think this is going to be our final live stream for 2021. So thank you to everyone who is joining us today, and I hope your holidays are going well. Alex, how have your holidays been going?
Pretty good.
Favorite present?
These wonderful wool socks that I got from our friend Sean. They're keeping me very warm during the stream.
It does get very, very cold down here. I think my favorite present was the night vision binoculars that I got, which I don't know what I'm going to use them for. I guess night bird watching. But anyway, so we have lots of great questions we've rounded up from the year, and we figured this would be a great time to go over our most asked questions, because a lot of people wonder, like, if you put up a YouTube channel that has over 800,000 subscribers on the Null Byte side, and then about that on the Hack5 side, you get a lot of questions sent to you, and a lot of them kind of fall into the same general categories. We want to take an opportunity to tell you guys what our most common questions have been, and also what the answers are to those questions. So some of them I think you'll probably be able to guess in advance, but some of them also might surprise you. So if you are live in the chat today, of course, we are going to do our best to answer your questions. And if you also are maybe replaying this later on, you can ask a question on the YouTube replay, and we will get to it the next time we go live. But unfortunately, that's going to be next year, which is like in a week. All right, so it's good to see everybody in the chat. Let's go ahead and get started with our first question today. Let's go ahead and bring it up.
Cool. Do you want to do the most common questions we've gotten this year?
Yeah, so
okay, cool.
We have gotten a lot of questions in about Null Byte this year. And in particular, this is about like what happened to Null Byte? Why don't you guys post on that channel anymore? Well, actually, Alex, you were never on Null Byte, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you were post Null Byte. So for a long time, I was the editor over at WonderHow2 for the Null Byte section. And WonderHow2 is a collection of websites that includes like gadget hacks and some other stuff that I never actually worked on. I was specifically working on the Null Byte side of things. So I recruited writers who eventually I turned into content producers who I worked with in my studio in Los Angeles to get the Null Byte YouTube channel off the ground from basically being told that I shouldn't do it. So after doing that for quite some time and beginning to finally get some money from it, the company that owned the website never really figured out like a monetization strategy. They would buy content from us, stack it, and then they never really bothered to like get sponsorships or like figure out how they were going to make money. So their plan kind of fell apart and they ended up wanting to sell everything. But unfortunately, it looks like nobody has bought it for a while. And in fact, one of my good friends made a bid to buy it for like almost $100,000. And they were like, no, we want $500,000 for this derelict website whose content is getting older, less useful, and less relevant every day. So at that, we kind of lost touch with the people at WonderHow2, but we're not really sure what they're doing, but we know that they're not really doing anything with Null Byte anymore. It's just been sitting there, especially the YouTube channel has been kind of like derelict for over a year now. So yeah, we basically, they stopped paying us and locked us out of the YouTube channel. So we can't really update it anymore. But yeah, so we have a lot of really great people who came from the Null Byte channel who went on to other things. We are now over on Hack5 doing the Hack Byte show, which you might notice the title of Hack Byte and Null Byte are somewhat similar. And strangely, the content is kind of similar as well. So if you really like Null Byte, if you want to find more great content, then check us out on Hack Byte, because once a week at least, we are going to be putting out new episodes on all sorts of interesting stuff. Recently, I have been covering CircuitPython, which I love Python and I love microcontrollers, so it's kind of the perfect combination of both. And Alex, what have you been covering?
Mostly Nugget stuff and different ways that you can use the Wi-Fi Nugget, which is the platform that we've been developing. Cody's been working on it in CircuitPython, but I've mostly been showing like Wi-Fi hacking, proof of concepts, and how you can set up things like an access point you can legally practice hacking on. I also recently demonstrated the Log4j exploit and how you can use Log4Shell to exploit apps like Ghidra that are vulnerable to it.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen, Alex's video on demonstrating the Log4Shell vulnerability is going to hit 200,000 views.
Really?
probably in the next
Dang.
week or so. Yeah, it's at 170 some. So that was up from like 150 some, like not even that many days ago. So it's still getting a ton of traction, and it's so far your most popular video.
Yeah.
So we're still putting out stuff that gets lots of attention, and you can find it on Hack5. But Hack5 is just like a great platform for us. They've allowed us to do things that have made it easier for us to produce higher quality content, to spend more time on it, to spend more money on getting great people involved. So yeah, Hack5 has been a really great home for us. And of course, Varonis has given us the opportunity to do this live stream show and be really consistent with producing content, 2-3 times a week. So yeah, we've been set up very, very well in the wake of Nullbyte kind of like collapsing in on itself. So that's kind of the abridged story of what happened. There was a lot of like, very excellent people involved. Like, for example, over at Nullbyte, there's still an amazing editor named Justin who basically did the entire editing of the Nullbyte website himself. So if you've ever read an article on Nullbyte, it was whipped into shape so you could understand it by an excellent editor over there. So not saying that there's not great people over at Nullbyte that we miss working with. It's just the parent company just couldn't figure out what to do with it. So I'm hoping that somebody buys it that wants to do something with it, because I had a lot of fun creating the Nullbyte channel. And frankly, I think there's a lot of people who would maybe like to contribute content onto it and revive it someday.
I would love to.
Yeah, right? So
Yeah.
like if they decide to sell it and then we get involved again, I would love to continue producing content on it. But for now, you can find us on SecurityFWD, obviously, and also the Hackbyte channel. All right, what's the next question?
Will you help me hack my ex/friend?
Okay.
You get that one a lot.
I get this one all the time. Have you gotten this one yet, Alex?
I have gotten it, but in different form factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a level of people who will watch one of these videos that show like how to do something, how to unlock something, how to like get access to something, and they're just like, this is the person who can break all the rules. But they don't have the moral, let's call it a moral compass, to know that like using your ability to like, get around systems for personal reasons, especially when they're like abusive, sketchy, weird personal reasons, is not legal. And it's also super, super unethical. So there is currently on InfoSec Twitter, there was a, have you seen this yet? Everyone's so mad. So on InfoSec Twitter, there was a guy who replied to a post of someone saying, hey, like I keep getting these requests for people asking for spyware to spy on their ex, like how ridiculous. And the person was just like, well, I don't think that's very nice of you. This person came to you looking for help. You should really respect what they're trying to do. And the whole InfoSec community is just like, this guy sucks. Like, why would you help someone stalk their ex? And it's true. This is a really, really common thing that a lot of people think is totally fine. And this is kind of my smell test for someone who's like ethical or unethical. If you are talking about hacking, they're like, yeah, I can't wait to change my grades and hack my ex and be able to make it so I can get free stuff. I'm like, okay, like, all right. But if that's like your first instinct to like, like use it to cheat, then you might have a bad time because you're going to get in trouble, because those sorts of selfish things are what people assume the worst of in InfoSec. It's like when people are interested in, like finding out what your school's security is like, the first thing people are going to be worried about is whether or not you've hacked in and changed your grades or changed someone else's grades, because that's like the worst case scenario. So if you're out here like demonstrating the worst case scenario for people's fears, you're making it harder for people who are legitimately interested in information security or cybersecurity or just hacking to become better at what they do and make the world a better place by turning those things in and letting people build better programs, better defenses, better everything. So these questions are just kind of indicative of someone who's like not on the same page when it comes to making this sort of thing useful for those who want a career in this maybe, or just want things that they use to not be vulnerable. If you want those things to stay vulnerable so you can have power over other people, you're gonna not, I don't know. I think it brings you to kind of a dark place when it comes to like cybersecurity and like the kinds of things people use it for. If you use it for like theft or personal reasons, like, stalking someone, then people are always going to not trust you, especially if you get caught for doing that, because it means that you can't be trusted with that sort of advantage because you'll misuse it. What do you think?
Right. I think also people who are like flooding our comment sections with these kind of questions are also the reason why platforms like YouTube and TikTok can be adverse to like InfoSec-based content, and it's honestly damaging to the kind of stuff we're trying to make for people who actually want to use this to like get an InfoSec career or learn cybersecurity or stuff like that.
Yeah. So we obviously can't answer these questions because frequently people aren't telling the truth about it being, their girlfriend or sometimes they'll be like, oh, I've been locked out of my own account.
That's what I mean.
It's SparkGirl216 at whatever. I'm just like, but you're a dude. Like, how is that your account? It's like, don't worry about it. Just give me access to the account.
Yeah, I get recovery questions like that all the time. They're like, oh, can you help me recover my girlfriend's Gmail? She forgot how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So like these are very clever attempts, but frankly, like not only do I not know how to do that, I don't want to. And if you can't figure it out, then you probably shouldn't be asking around because you're eventually going to get caught. All right, so let's move on from that one.
Well, okay, this is a pretty common one. What's the best Wi-Fi adapter to use?
We really like Alpha wireless network adapters, and they have a whole section on which wireless network adapters are compatible with Kali Linux. Go on, Alex.
Between Panda and Alpha, I think those are probably the two most common brands that you'll find for wireless adapters. I personally prefer Panda because they come in very slim and inconspicuous form factors. One of my favorites, I think, is the Panda PAU0A. The naming convention's kind of weird, but
it is.
It's like a really small dual band dongle that looks basically like a USB stick.
Let's switch over to my screen. I think I got it. So on the Alpha Wireless site, it's really confusing sometimes to know, like, hey, what is going to work on Kali Linux? Well, if you go over to products, they literally have Kali Linux compatible.
Nice.
They have a whole section dedicated to things that are known to be compatible with Kali Linux. And of these, some of them support 5 gigahertz. This one supports 5 gigahertz, so if you want to do some 5 gigahertz hacking, like, there you go. This is one of the like kind of race car looking ones that they developed, which are really cool. Yeah, I've used this one a couple times. It's 5 gigahertz compatible. My favorites are generally, I think this one is also 5 gigahertz compatible, and you're able to connect other antennas to it. So if you wanted to do like a directional antenna, you could do that. This is more of like a USB style one that mimics like a Panda wireless one that I really like. So these ones tend to be, and then we have my all-time favorite, the Tube UN.
Hey.
I'm serious, you guys. If you don't care about like it hiding anywhere or being subtle in the least, then this thing is awesome. It's designed to be mounted on like boats and like cars and stuff, or like RVs, but it has like miles of range. It is super beefy. It comes with like these giant antennas. And I can hook these up to a parabolic grid, or I can hook them up to like a lightsaber-sized omnidirectional antenna. So these are beefy. I would say, again, if you don't care that someone sees what you're doing, this is the one that's going to get you the best performance. It's like waterproof. Like it's really outstanding.
Does that have a built-in wireless adapter inside of it? Or
Yeah,
is that
it does.
Like dang.
So it has a built-in wireless network adapter inside of it. It takes like these chunky antennas, or you can plug it into their parabolic grid, and then the bottom has like a gasket and comes with a super long cable that comes out of it that's like sealed.
That's sweet.
So I have one running like outside of our house. It's really, really cool. And I have to say, like, Alpha has some really cool products like that. Another one that they sent me for free, which I still haven't covered actually, is like a Wi-Fi repeater. So it has a cellular like card on the inside that it acts as a modem for your cellular signal, and then uses this basically to extend that Wi-Fi signal everywhere. So it gets cellular data and then turns it into a wireless access point. Which we used, I think, when we first moved into this house as a backup, and it was pretty cool. So like they have some really interesting stuff that I have barely scratched the surface of, and a lot of it's Kali Linux compatible. So if you want to check out Alpha Wireless, I really like them. And also, they reply to our emails when we say hello, and they've sent us a lot of really cool stuff. So they've been really supportive of the show, and I want to give them a big acknowledgement for that, because we've been able to do a lot of cool Wi-Fi research just because of all the great stuff they've sent us.
Nice.
And what were you going to recommend?
Over on my screen, I have some of the dongles offered by Panda Wireless. I own maybe about 3 out of this set, but I have this Panda PAU09. That one is one of my favorites for longer range dual band hacking. This is the one I was talking about, I think, between one of these two, which is the Panda PAU0A or something like that. But it's a dual band dongle that comes in the form factor of something that might look like a mouse dongle or a keyboard dongle or something. Very inconspicuous and low profile. They also have some other options like this 2.4 gigahertz one, or this one that looks like a USB stick. But these are a relatively cheaper and lower profile option compared to some of the fancier Alpha dongles.
Yeah, The only problem is that they got grumpy at us at one time, and now they won't reply to our emails. So Alpha's been really supportive of the hacker community, and I like their products a lot. But if you're on a budget, then we've also gotten really good results out of the Panda Wireless stuff that that we've used. Yeah. So I would say either one of those is good. And we have a question in the comments: is aetherius still a good chipset? I remember the 9K back in the day was friggin' awesome for packet injection. So one of the Alpha cards that I showed off was, I believe, an aetherius chipset, and I like it a lot. But that particular one is 2.4 gigahertz only. And the problem with that is most devices now, like routers and things like that, will have two different channels with the exact same name, and wireless devices will switch seamlessly from one to the other. So if you were going to use, the aetherius chipset that only supports 2.4 gigahertz, and I'm pretty sure that there's some 5 gigahertz ones as well, I just don't remember off the top of my head, then you could theoretically have that device get pushed over onto the 5 gigahertz network or automatically choose it, and then you're kind of out of luck. You can't reach it. So a lot of the ones that I was showing off in Alpha are dual band, so they're able to do 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and that's really important for being able to interact with a modern device that might be able to switch between the two. For IoT devices, it's not as big of a deal because most IoT devices don't support 5 gigahertz, but for just attacking like an endpoint, like a smartphone or something, then you want to make sure you have dual band just because it's so likely that it'll hop over from one to the other on a dual band router.
Yeah, most of the Alpha ones are aetherius based, I think, and Panda uses, I think it's Raylink or Realtek or something like that. I also know the Hack5 products are using aetherius for some of their chipsets for like the Signal Owl or Pineapple and stuff like that. But yeah, it's still really common.
So one question, I don't know if this question is common. The Raspberry Pi 3D does support monitor mode according to Kody on Null Byte. Yeah, that's me. So can the RP blah 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 that has the same system on chip support monitor mode as well? I would guess it probably can. So the Raspberry Pi 3B and 3B Plus were really great for me working with them on a bunch of different what would I call them? I guess like classes that we taught at the community college where every student got a Raspberry Pi, plugged into it, and was using the wireless card to learn about like wireless monitor mode, packet injection, grabbing handshakes. It worked really well. We didn't have to have anything else plugged into it in order for it to work, which was honestly fantastic because we plugged all the devices into Ethernet in order to like give them access to internet, and then we were able to use the wireless card as the attack surface. So I think they're super, super cool and great for that. Now, if you have the same system on a chip, then yeah, I would imagine that it should also work because it's all integrated and the wireless is kind of combined with all the other stuff in there. So, I would say that it should be compatible, but I haven't tried it out myself. I would just be pretty surprised if it wasn't. Great question, though. The lack of 5G support is the big downfall of the Pineapple mark. Yeah,
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it seems like there is like something you can plug into it, which is literally just a 5 gigahertz wireless network adapter that it gives it that ability. Yeah. So you can expand it to be able to do that, I believe, but we have not successfully done it ourselves because we've been tied up with like Nugget stuff for the last like couple months.
That would be cool. We have gotten comments before that were asking to demonstrate stuff on 5 gigahertz hacking with the Pineapple and like different modules you could add on in order to try that. But we could give it a shot sometime.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to be taking a look at some other Raspberry Pi modules and like seeing what they can and can't do. We haven't tried anything with Raspberry Pi Pico because frankly, like I find microcontrollers without Wi-Fi access to be unsexy. I find them unappealing. They don't speak to me. They don't inspire me. So like I've been focusing on the ESP32S2 because it can run CircuitPython and do a lot of the stuff that the Pi Pico can do, but it has Wi-Fi, and I honestly prefer that. It just gives you the ability to do so many cool things. So but other Raspberry Pi form factors, we've tried out the Raspberry Pi 400 or whatever the keyboard one is, and I found that it does not support wireless mode, which makes it just that much worse, in my opinion.
It's an abomination.
I would call it an abomination. I have one.
It's a keyboard slapped to a Raspberry Pi.
It's a keyboard slapped to a Raspberry Pi. On that, we can definitely agree. And it doesn't have a trackpad. If it did, I would be a little bit less mad. But I've gone about this several times. All right, what's our next most common question? And again, if you guys are in the chat, feel free to shout them out because we're just going over our most common questions we've been asked this year. So if you're curious about what kinds of questions people like us who are in very visible like hacking places get asked, we'll be going through them. Alex, what's the next one?
What laptop do you use? I know we're both very fond of our laptops.
So I was in a restaurant like a couple weeks ago, and the server like saw my MacBook Pro completely wrapped with stickers, like, oh, I have that computer too, and then came around and saw it was a MacBook Pro, and was like, oh, never mind, and walked away. And I was like, how you just saw like a bunch of stickers and you were like, that's my laptop too. So I have been getting companies to buy me MacBook Pros for a very long time. I think it's been 6-7 years that I've been managing to get other people to buy me MacBook Pros because they're expensive and I would never buy one myself. So, as long as I can get access to one, they're nice for doing like photo and video editing stuff and some of the other Linux-like things that I do. And I really like that projects like Homebrew make it really easy for me to install other Linux applications that I'm used to using on Ubuntu or Kali Linux. That being said, this thing sucks. And I have been trying to get somebody at Lenovo to give us ThinkPads so I can just switch over and say that I got a free ThinkPad instead. So if any of you guys know somebody from ThinkPad, please let them know. We would love to say nice things about ThinkPads instead of mean things about MacBook Pros every time someone asks us this question. But this is not good for wireless hacking, which is most of what I do. It is okay for development work, like writing Python scripts and things like that. And it's okay for writing bash scripts, which is why I accept it, even though it gets so hot and loud, it sounds like it's about to take off from the desk when I'm doing something as simple as a wireless scan using an external wireless network adapter in a virtual machine, because I cannot do it natively in the system. The wireless is totally locked down. So this is actually the only Apple product I use, I think. I think it is. So it,
as far as you know, what if there's an Apple AirTag on you?
Yeah, except for the Apple AirTag that Zam planted on me like a year ago. But yeah, so I really don't particularly recommend the computer I use for this. It costs more than a car and someone bought it for me. So like, what are you gonna do? Be rude, not use it? Well, I will be rude and not use it as soon as Lenovo hooks us up with like a ThinkPad that's not broken.
Yeah,
Alex, what about you?
I've had this hunk of metal for about 4 years, and it's definitely weathered through the years. But as much as it crashes on me now, it's lasted me the past like 5 years. It's an old ThinkPad. I don't know the exact model. I do like that it has.
It says Yoga 260.
Yeah, what's really cool about it though is I can freak Kody out by being able to completely flip my screen 360 and completely break its spine. But yeah, I've been running.
It's so violent. It's so violent.
Here, let's see if yours can do it.
No. I can't handle it.
Yeah, I've just been running Linux on it. I'm able to support wireless hacking, stuff like that. It's a great computer.
Yeah, I really like ThinkPads, and like aside from that one being scary with the way that it like flexes, it's been pretty cool. So one comment in the chat is the Kali ARM team is working on auto-detecting the Raspberry Pi version and then using the correct version of Nexmon version accordingly. It's still in the works, but for now you have to manually install Nexmon version for your chipset. So what is that? What does that mean? So Nexmon is a kind of like a patch that allows you to use the correct driver to work with the chip that's in the Raspberry Pi to do all the wireless hacking stuff you would want to do. But it's dependent on the chipset that you're using, and it doesn't seem as though there's currently a way to auto-detect that. So you might get Kali Linux installed and be like, oh, this wireless card doesn't work. It's not auto-detected. In that case, there's an additional step you need to go through, which is identifying the right chipset and then installing the correct driver for it, which is the Nexmon driver. So it's really cool that there's a community project that's able to make the Raspberry Pi more useful for Wi-Fi hackers, but it is an extra configuration step that a lot of people get wrong. And sometimes if you don't do it right, can lead to bugs and errors and all sorts of other weird wireless behaviors, which is what I've encountered, including like persistent crashes while using it and other sorts of issues that it could be Raspberry Pi dependent. It could just be that the patch is a little bit buggy sometimes. I've just had kind of mixed performance with it because maybe I'm installing just slightly the wrong version. I don't really know because it doesn't auto-detect. So that's... Oh, and thank you for feeling my pain on that Dinkelberg. I reach out to all other MacBook Pro users who try to do just like Linux-like stuff on it, and it's just not fun using a Mac. So
yeah.
All right, what is the next question?
Cool. I have a problem with software XYZ that you didn't write. Can you help me with it?
Yes. I would love to help you out with that piece of software. I did a single Null Byte episode about 6 years ago and has been discontinued. In fact, the number one question I get is whether or not I can help out with some random software program by the Linux Choice, who made like 5 or 6 different tools that I covered, and then they got really upset and just removed all their stuff from the internet. So people will find my guides and be like, wait, that GitHub link doesn't work anymore. So they'll go to my Twitter and just be like, I need you to send me a copy of the software. And like for a while, I had like locally stored versions on my computer. I'm like, all right, here you go, buddy. Like don't tell anyone I gave it to you. But I have since stopped doing that because it is dumb. So you can go back on the Wayback Machine if you need to and try to find some of this stuff. But unfortunately, if I didn't write the software and it's vanished from the internet, I, in most cases, cannot help you with it because I didn't write it and I only used it for like a day. In fact, there's lots of things that when I was working at Byte, I would like learn how to do over the course of a couple days and then have effectively a test on it where I would get to teach it and make sure I knew how to use it and explain it, and then basically never have any reason to ever use that tool ever again. So if I get a question about it 4 years later, it's often pretty difficult for me to understand like even like what that was, let alone like what small specific technical problem you might be having. So I would recommend you reach out to the author of the tool. If I was rude enough to write the tool and it doesn't work, then by all means let me know. I definitely deserve it for the Chicken Man game. There are like hundreds of people have tried that, and I've gotten surprisingly low amounts of requests for support, but sometimes like I'll find that something's just like catastrophically broken. I'm like, oh my God, I do not have time for this. Fortunately though, most of the time it's just people asking about other people's broken software, which unfortunately I am not able to fix. But yeah, we've gotten that a lot. Oh yeah, and Zam has thrown his hat into the ring for a ThinkPad. Try an X1 for something more.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get an X1 for a while. That's one of their top tier like ThinkPads.
Yeah, also Zam has the one that's only for astronauts that we're very jealous of. So
No way.
He can recommend that one as well, but you need to be in space to use it according to their marketing.
Interesting.
All right, so we have some other questions. You want to go through those?
Yes. Let's check those out. Okay, this one was from an old stream you did on the Black Arc operating system. I feel like this is my toolkit is bigger than yours operating system, just for the hell of it. Yeah, Black Arch has like thousands of tools compared to like Kali Linux or other operating systems. Do you remember anything about?
Yeah, Black Arch. So Black Arch was definitely something where it is a little bit more of a pain to install. It's definitely more of a pain to use if you're not familiar with just working with the command line and you're used to using a desktop interface. You can obviously make it more friendly if you want to, but it's kind of like a rite of passage where other people need to understand your pain before you're allowed to fully acclimate to it. So like there's so many trade-offs when it comes to just the raw sheer amount of tools you can run on it versus how easy it is to run a tool that was maybe made to be used with a GUI. Right. There's several tools that are meant to be used with a graphic user interface, and then you have to do all kinds of nonsense to get that started in Black Arch. So if you like a simple minimalist system, then like go crazy. You can do that. But I personally use things like Manjaro to make Arch a little bit more simple to use. I can play games on it if I want to. So like I like Manjaro a lot for the Arch experience without the Arch pain. But
and without the elitist community.
Well, I still get to tell people that I run Arch. Like, believe me, I still get to do that.
Oh, is it Arch-based? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to run Arch, but you want a more like friendly experience, then Manjaro is my personal recommendation because Arch is definitely, you get lots of tools. Black Arch, you get lots of tools, but you also get to figure out how to install it.
Yeah, the problem with Arch is you just have to like completely build it up from scratch, and it just comes with like a CLI, and you have to set up everything out of the box like that. It's not exactly user-friendly or palatable for beginners.
All right, so we have a question in the chat, which is between Parrot OS and Kali Linux, which do you guys prefer? So I constantly have to make this choice, and if I'm going to settle down and use something for a long period of time, I do like Parrot Security OS because it has lots of great tools, it has more bleeding edge stuff, and it doesn't have as much documentation as Kali Linux, or at least not as many people have run into problems using it and then fixed it with like easy to find replies, in support boards and stuff like that. But it is beautiful and it does work really well. That being said, if I'm just spinning something up quickly and I want to be able to use something that I know really well, has great support, and has been around forever, Kali Linux is still my go-to because there's so much support on how to use it, and there's so many people who are using it that the user base and the fact that there's so many people who have run into the same problem as me makes it way, way easier to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. It's just the most common, security-related operating system that somebody trying out a tool would be using when they run into an error. So most of the troubleshooting steps are specific to Kali Linux, or otherwise pretty applicable to Kali Linux only. Now that being said, they're both Debian based, so a lot of the fixes that work in one will also work for the other. So there is a little bit of crossover between support for Kali Linux and support for issues with SecurityOS, because they're not really that diverged. But personally, I think it's a matter of like style, really. Like I really like the style of SecurityOS. I think it's a better like daily driver if you were going to use it for that. But as just a spun up instance or something to use for a specific task, I almost always use Kali Linux because I'm so familiar with it. What do you think?
I'm with you there in that same vein. I used to use ParrotOS when I was trying to use it as like my daily operating system. But like with newer releases of Kali, they also added like a non-root user, so you don't like screw up your stuff if you're running just applications that you don't want to have root privileges. I also like the interface better. I think it's GNOME-based or something like that. I personally prefer it because it's also the same default one on Ubuntu. I just like it better generally if I'm using it for hacking stuff.
So one person was guessing that we use Mac and Ubuntu. Yeah, so right now the operating systems we're running Ubuntu, macOS. Although I also use Linux a lot, and I also do use Ubuntu. So I guess that is pretty accurate. You know, I can run Windows if I need to, and I do sometimes, but I don't find Bash scripting I don't find PowerShell to be nearly as fun as Bash scripting. So whenever I'm like writing an automation program or something, I typically will use Ubuntu or macOS because I can use the same Bash scripts between the same system. So
yeah, I
like
hate
that.
PowerShell. I tried to figure it out for a while, and then it was just like, ugh.
So one question we had was, what's the best VPN for someone who owns their own company and works from home? And my response would be, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to protect your local network from people who are snooping, or do you want the endpoint of that network to be somebody that you really trust? Because I mean, for me, like if I'm just doing like normal like security research stuff, I might use someone like I think I use Mulvad is what I use. And I like them. I just, I don't care. Like if they were selling the stuff I'm doing there, it's not really that big of a deal for me. I'm mostly worried about people on my local network, people trying to phish me or something like that might be doing it on a local network. So for me, I just want general encryption on my local network. And the stuff I'm doing with a specific provider isn't like mission or business critical. So I'm not really too worried about it. But I mean, what are they doing with my data? I don't know. Have I ever met the people who run it? No, I haven't. So if your concern is about like privacy, then self-hosted VPN like might be, as someone in the chat pointed out, might be an option for you. Or you might want to customize the way that it works so that it's a setup that you feel like meets whatever your like threat model is. So for local network attacks, I would say, one of the commercial ones like Mulvad or something like that might be totally fine for you. But if you really are more concerned about privacy and you don't want all of your business stuff going through an unknown server, it's really down to whether you trust your internet service provider or whether you trust this other random thing.
I agree with that. I don't really have anything to add, but there's tools like OpenVPN you could set up, or like proxy chains if you did want to go like the self-hosted route rather than hoping that the company dealing with your data doesn't try to siphon it off or steal it or sell it or something like that.
I feel like this is a question for you. WS2811 or WS2812B?
I would WS2812B because it has only
this is, I'm
four
sorry,
pins.
this is like almost like encoded. Like,
okay,
what does this question mean?
So this is asked. So the NeoPixels that we use, like for example, on the Wi-Fi Nugget, the older versions are WS2811 and the newer ones are 2812B, I think, or something like that. The older one has 5 pins. There's like positive, negative, data in, data out, and then also like another line that was completely unnecessary. But then in the newer revision of this LED, they got rid of the 5th line, which it just makes it easier to use. It's dumb.
All right, so the ones we are using are the newer ones?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So
they're just nicer because like it frees up more pin space and you're able to route pins through the LED.
Yeah, and the poor kid that we hire to solder together our nuggets also doesn't have to solder like extra pins on each one. Yeah.
It also makes just PCB routing easier, so I prefer the 2812B.
What about dot stars?
Dot stars are just smaller versions of the NeoPixels. I like them better. They're definitely harder to hand solder though, but we're talking about using them on smaller versions of the Wi-Fi Nugget.
Yeah, I heard that the only like interesting. So this is all comes down to like creating interesting little like pixels that are able to be individually controlled in a strip and do things like animations. And I was hearing that the dot stars also have some interesting qualities with their refresh rate is higher, so you can do things like persistence of vision or persistence of
cool.
by like spinning it and basically creating with its refresh rate, creating animations like in the air, basically by rotating it really fast. So there's like things you can do with dot stars, I guess, that you can't do with neopixels because the neopixel refresh rate is too low. So there's some other considerations there as well.
Yes.
But yeah, okay. So another question is, what did you get for Christmas?
I got these wool socks. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to mind earlier, but I was blinking for a second.
You got clay?
Yeah, oh, the clay's great. I've been making these like minion abominations because I know how much Kody loves minions.
Yeah, he's been sculpting these minions, which are charming, and I feel like he could have a side business on Etsy, like making them, so he's been sculpting minions nonstop.
Besides that, I also got like these great wireless headphones that Kody got me. You got that great Wiggle Man that I want to commandeer sometime.
Oh, right. So our cryptozoology expert got me one of those wacky inflatable waving arm people that like stand outside car dealerships and attract and like woo people inside with their dances, but like a desktop version. So that was of course exciting. And then I also got like night vision binoculars, which I was not expecting, and then some things for my printer, and then a very excellent case for carrying equipment. And then lots of other very thoughtful things. So since we use our 3D printer a lot, that's definitely going to help out. Oh, and then I got an Obd2 sensor for the car. So if I want to plug into the car's computer and read data from it, I got a sensor that allows it to go over Bluetooth, but also allows you to plug in via serial. So you can like read and write commands to the car's computer, which I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet, but it sounds cool.
Nice. Oh, I also got something that will greatly help us for assembling Wi-Fi nuggets. I got like a set of SMD tweezers and also like this watch repair kit glasses thing that allows you to zoom in like up to 30 times the magnification.
Are
rate.
absolutely crazy.
Great.
So they're a pair. Yeah, you can put custom lenses in them, and like one of them is like really magnified, the other is like sort of magnified. They flip down over your eyes, and then they have like powerful LEDs on either side that illuminate it. Yeah. So you can like hold up a single component and see it in like 2 different types of magnification. It is absolutely crazy. I tried it out, and it's actually I think one of the coolest presents I've seen in a while. Because for what we do, like electronics assembly and like trying to find tiny little problems in like tiny little boards, like it's going to be so helpful. So yeah, it was we got a lot of cool stuff actually. It was very nice.
Zam asks about the APA 102. Yeah, that's the chips. I guess not chipset, but that's rather the spec name of the dot star. We do like those. We'll use them sometime. Yeah,
look forward to them on future Nugget designs. They're just like really hard to solder by hand.
Yeah.
So one question was, what is our printer? So we currently have 2 3D printers. One of them is the Creality belt printer. It's like the CR130, or what was it?
Yeah,
that?
I think it's that.
Yeah, so it...
Oh, CR30.
CR30, maybe. Yeah. So that was part of a Kickstarter project that I backed, and I received this like belt printer. And then like literally as soon as it arrived, I found out that I had been following an account that the creator of this printer like mass blocked. So like they blocked the account and everybody who followed the account. So as soon as I got the printer, I was no longer able to see any like information on Twitter from the person who made it, including like instructions and troubleshooting. So I kind of like lost interest in it a little bit because like I could no longer like ask if I needed help. So there was that. And then there's also our regular Creality Ender 3 version
1.
Version 1.
Our friend Sean is the version 2.
Yeah, we have a version 2 as well, but it's offline because the person who owns it insists on printing PETG, which is cursed. So their printer is perpetually offline, experiencing problems. We've been printing with eSun PLA Plus for a couple of years now, and this printer just like will not stop. It's powerful. I really personally think that that's my favorite material I've printed with it. Because it just like it's so consistent and it just seems to work really well. So that's our setup. Mostly using eSun PLA Plus, but we've also been using some like color changing, like thermal color changing filament on a Ender 3 V1.
Yeah, we have had some problems with it, but we're working out the kinks. There's definitely some trade-offs to using color changing filament. Like you have to print with higher temperatures or different flow rates and stuff like that. Wait, it's a great little printer.
Yeah, and the number one modification we've made to it is adding Octoprint to it. I had this printer for like a full year before using a Raspberry Pi to add a web interface, be able to upload prints, see what it's doing, and even make time lapses automatically. And like I had no idea what I was missing and how annoying it was to go down and like find my print was complete spaghetti. I could be in a complete other room and be like, oh, I wonder how my print's doing, and just check on it on a web page and be able to stop the print if it's misbehaving, or adjust things if I feel like I need to increase the temperature or do other things with the printer. So adding Octoprint is by far the best thing you can do to make your 3D printer more useful. I cannot recommend it enough. I wish I had not waited so long. And it's probably, I think, one of the best applications for Raspberry Pi out there, because it just makes the printer infinitely more useful.
Oh yeah, I was adamant to try it out at first because I was like, why would I want to strap a microcomputer to my 3D printer? But after trying it, I haven't looked back.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I actually had the pleasure of having the creator of Octoprint. I think I'm pretty sure Gina was in one of my classes at C3, and she was super cool. And yeah, I was kind of starstruck later when I figured out that I actually had been using and sometimes hacking Octoprint for years, and I didn't even know it was her. So that was really cool. But yeah, that's our printer setup.
Socks are the best. Nothing like a fresh pair of socks on your feet. I
Or
gotta
off
agree.
your feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Cool.
All right, so what's the next question we got?
Cool. I'll take another question from. Wow, this is one of the first videos, I think.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe it is the first video you
I
did
think
on
it might be.
SecurityFWD. This one is hacking computers from blocks away with a Wi-Fi duck. The question is, this is exactly why you install and activate the USB guard daemon on your Linux system.
Yeah, so USB guard, if I remember correctly, is something that looks for new USB devices. So each one of your devices should have like a unique identifier, and you can detect when a USB device that's never been plugged into your computer before has been plugged in. So by having some sort of monitoring system to make sure that a new USB device doesn't have unfettered access to your computer, I mean, it honestly kind of makes sense, really. Like
you can also like whitelist or blacklist certain types of USB devices. So like if something's typing way faster than it should be, then you can just go ahead and block that device out. Or you can also just have it like whitelist known devices like keyboards or mouses that you've used before.
Yeah, so we have a question in the chat about, have you seen Helium Wi-Fi miners? Some routers get a bunch of infiltration alerts when nearby. I'm curious to see what they're actually doing. So I actually am familiar with Helium miners, and the problem with them is oftentimes people get excited about this technology without really understanding what it might be doing on your Wi-Fi network. And if you don't know what's going on, or if you're not able to do proper monitoring, it could be, I mean, someone pointed out, it could be a botnet for pay, and until it gets shut down, you would never really know what was going on, because a lot of the technology is kind of obtuse. It's just something where you're supposed to be able to farm this out to people who are enthusiastic about the technology but don't really ask a lot of questions. So yeah, like things like this definitely represent a security risk, because a lot of the times these crypto projects will be found to have like pretty serious vulnerabilities or just oversights in the security that they have on them. So if you're inviting these sorts of IoT devices into your network, they're controlled by someone else, you don't maybe understand exactly what it's doing, or it's doing a job for another company who might not be totally transparent about everything that they're doing, then without taking it on kind of faith, there's very little ability to like audit this sort of thing, go in and from a security perspective find out what's going on, unless you're highly motivated to do that and have the skills. So that's really my argument against like bringing one of these devices in unless you really know what it's doing, especially if you're getting red flags from like IDS systems or anything else that might lead you to believe that it was doing something kind of sketchy. My best recommendation would be completely separate it from any network that you care about and make sure that it's isolated, so that the consequences of it maybe having a vulnerability that allows somebody else to turn it into a botnet or go rogue, or maybe even spread across your network, are limited to a specific area and doesn't threaten the rest of your traffic. I would say, like lots of these projects do rely on people who don't understand the technology deploying it. And that is a big problem with security when it comes to trying to keep a network perimeter when unknown things are coming in and potentially being connected.
Yeah, lots of these things sound too good to be true that you can just like plug in this random box and then whoop, there you go, you have more money in your crypto account by the end of the month. I would like to hack one sometime, though. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
We should get our hands on one of those.
Yeah. So another thing that's particularly worth noting is like if you look at the business model of something like Helium OS, it seems to make like this weird shape, almost like a pyramid almost.
Perhaps.
So if you have like something that's going onto your network and the business model of the main company means that people who get involved early and recruit more people under them generally make more money, and the money flows up, then like, you know, be wary.
Yeah.
So I do know about that particular project. I can't say that anything I'm saying is other than just an opinion of mine. Like, again, I haven't done a security review. I just know that these sorts of projects in the past have had security issues because crypto is a huge, huge target for anybody who wants to make money. Like if there's money to be made, there's mining being done, it will eventually become a target. And some of these devices, when they're deployed in all sorts of configurations across all sorts of types of networks, might cause unintended consequences.
This is a question we get a lot. Where can a beginner start in cybersecurity?
Yes, so I would say one of the best places to get started is networking. And the reason for that is you can get started with the solid networking foundation that doesn't require a lot of computer science. It doesn't require much more than understanding the way networks are deployed and how they work. And you can at least understand how these tools are used and get started with them. If you want to write your own tools, then that means getting at least a little bit into programming and computer science. But you can do tons of stuff with just network engineering that doesn't require a computer science background and probably isn't that far away from whatever career you're currently in. A lot of the lessons translate over, and I found that network engineering tends to be more accessible for a lot of people than computer science can be. What do you think?
Yeah, something that we always say, there's just so many fields in cybersecurity, it really depends what you want to get into. There's like open source intelligence, reverse engineering, Wi-Fi hacking, signals intelligence, stuff like that. So it depends really what field you want to get into, but I think networking definitely lays the foundation, as Kody said, for being able to understand how applications or networks work and reverse engineer them if you're trying to attack them or stuff like that.
So
also Linux. Learn Linux tools, I guess.
Oh yeah, Linux is also a really good place to start. If you can learn to use Linux utilities and do things like bash scripting, it can make a lot of this stuff way easier.
Yeah, automation is definitely a big thing with whether that's bash scripting or programming.
So Zam points out that we were earlier talking about like a USB guard or something that looks for like the unique type of USB device that you're using and looks for new ones and tries to lock them out, or maybe looks for characteristics. And Zam points out that you can clone a USB ID as easily as a MAC address.
Oh, yeah.
While that's true, you would still need to get the USB ID of the device you were going to clone. So that could be, I guess, as simple as like, unplugging their keyboard, plugging it into your device, getting the ID, and then plugging your device in. But it does add an extra step and makes it a little bit harder to just plug some random USB device into a computer and manage to get it to do whatever it wants.
Right.
And some of the things like limiting the typing speed and making sure it's reasonable for a person to be using the device rather than it being automated are also good defenses against this sort of attack.
Yeah, I was thinking it'd be interesting, like if you could just slow down the attack maybe, and if that would bypass the filters, given that you have like all the things to bypass security rules set up in like USB guard or whatever, that might work. Yeah,
so one question was, did you guys ever do drugs? Like today? I don't have to answer this question. Let's move on.
I took melatonin gummies last night to fall asleep.
There you go. So another question is, what do you guys think about Web3? So I admittedly do not know a lot about Web3 because every time someone starts explaining it to me, I notice that they're also trying to push me on NFTs and like weird crypto stuff. So I back away very quickly.
Is this just like the new generation of web technology?
No, it's not. It's like supposed to be like a decentralized like web network, but it's like actually pretty centralized and like if you ask like 3 questions, it doesn't make sense anymore. So I'm just gonna skip over it a little bit because like frankly like some of the stuff like. All right, so Moxie Marvelous Spike, the creator Signal, recently released an NFT that is just a blank canvas, and the first person who draws on it then has to try to get other people to draw on it, but pay to draw on it, and the amount of money it costs to draw on the canvas increases over time. So and then the people who drew on it first get some amount or share of that revenue as it comes out. So it's like a canvas in the shape of a pyramid scheme. And like basically the more people that just scribble on this canvas have to pay more money, and then the original creator gets rich. It's like when I see those sorts of like projects, I just don't care. I just don't care. Because I've seen pyramid schemes, and like seeing a pyramid scheme happen in real time for like a digital like version of MS Paint is fascinating, like from a sociological standpoint, but it does from a technology standpoint. Like I know what a pyramid scheme is, and creating like a fintech experiment and how to like create a digital pyramid scheme, like that's fascinating to me, but I don't have any time for it.
For the price of $0, I can open up GIMP and draw whatever I want for free.
Yeah, and then I could turn around and charge people an increasing amount of money to also draw stuff on GIMP.
Exactly.
I don't know, but
I think that's baffling.
Yeah. Okay. So specifically, apparently, Web3 is blockchain web. It seems very centralized to me because like the things that I'm not going to get into it, but like a lot of these things that seem to be like decentralized, like are actually not very decentralized. And like by looking at the way that it's hosted, I can see that if a couple websites went down or if a couple services went down, the whole thing would stop working. So like things like Tor interest me because like they have resiliency and they have like real world applications that really help. Things like Web3 like seem like I don't know. Somebody explain it to me in a way that seems good, and maybe I'll believe it. But the explanations I've seen so far just like don't seem like they solve any problems that are pressing, and they don't stand up to the true decentralization goals that things like Tor have really accomplished. So
I think that would also erode like a lot of privacy features if it's on the blockchain. Just like having a lot of stuff being able to be traced back to you that you might not necessarily want to be out there. That seems kind of sketchy to me.
I'm creating a digital fence. I'm going to scam people into whitewashing. I think that's beautiful. Honestly, if it was honestly described as an NFT just an NFT of a pyramid scheme, I think that's beautiful. People have been indulging in multi-layer marketing schemes, Ponzi schemes, and pyramid schemes like since there was an economy. So like if you're creating an art piece that is literally just a pyramid scheme, be true to your true self. Like just do it for what it is. Show us the art, like, you know. But like pretending like it's like an like evolving art piece, it's just like no, it's not. It's just when there's money involved, it's not.
This is like the digital front of money laundering through the art world, I guess now.
Yeah. So like we might be working on an NFT just to see if we can come up with literally anything and people will jump on it. So stay tuned if you have money to waste because we'll be coming up with some sort of pyramid scheme in the near future along this vein. All right. Next up.
I would like to know, what do you need to know to do defensive and offensive security?
That's great. So defensive security, like you frequently need to know how to do debugging. You need to know how to do reverse engineering if that's going to be something that you're looking at, like payloads that are being dropped or incident response. And you would need to networking, knowing networking and how things work together inside of a perimeter that you're in charge of defending are all things you're going to want to focus on if you're going the defender route. And computer science really does help if you're going the defender route as well, and you want to be able to do things like fix things, patch things, understand what to do when there's an incident. But there's all sorts of specialized roles in that as well. All the way from like marketing and PR and to incident response to the more technical roles. What about offensive?
I guess knowing how to use tools that are developed to exploit vulnerabilities, like, for example, the Log4Shell tool was one that I covered recently. Learning to use Wi-Fi hacking tools, stuff like that. Basically learning to use like Linux or something similar to that to attack stuff.
Heath Adams called you guys out and said you were a grifter, both of us. Do you have a response to that? I don't know who Heath Adams is, and I've been called far worse. But I don't know why he thinks that, but who cares? I also don't really like grift because like we get paid by the channels and we produce free content for everyone. So the content's free. It's free. It's free. All right. Let's move on to the next question. One question was, do we run Tor relays? So I don't run Tor relays on my own computer, but every time I see a public computer, you better believe I run a Tor relay. I think that every retail job I ever had, I ran a Tor relay on like the display computer or whatever I was around. Because yeah, Tor relays are great. And if some computer's just sitting there, it might as well be helping people fight censorship or whatever. Nice. There's things you can do like running a Tor snowflake in your browser, which if you're out and about using like public internet, for example, would give other people access to that public internet in order to circumvent censorship, even against normal Tor nodes. So I think Tor snowflakes are really cool. But whether or not you want to do that on your home network is definitely up to you. You don't maybe you want to call from the FBI telling you that your Tor relay is being used to launch an attack against someone, or maybe you don't care. It's all totally up to you. But I think Tor snowflakes are super cool because there have been a lot of efforts to make some more well-known Tor nodes very difficult to access from certain countries, and Tor snowflakes are a way of getting around that.
That's really cool. I haven't heard of those before, but I would try that.
Oh, cool. So what else we got?
Cool. This one is also from the Hacking Computers with a Wi-Fi Duck. It just says, he's a serious hacker when he has stickers on his laptop.
Oh, yeah. Stickers are basically how you can separate yourself from people who have like water bottle or like Supreme brand stickers on their computer. And you're just like, no, I don't like stickers. I like breaking computers. So it's kind of a way of like telling other hackers from around the room, from across the room, like exactly
what technology you break too.
Yeah, like what kind of things you're interested in. So I can, if I look around the room and I see there's like somebody who has like a laptop that has like Kali Linux stuff on it or Hack5 stuff on it, I'm like, oh, this is someone who does security for a living or wants to do security for a living, or at least someone who knows about security and wants to talk about it. So it's kind of cool to be able to just like identify like what type of security stuff someone else is interested in if they want to show that off. But I mean, a lot of these are like either projects I was involved in, people I've worked with, or other people, other projects that I really want to represent or feel like, kind of are something I'd like to show off as things I'm interested in. So obviously I'm very interested in breaking into Wi-Fi. I have been to C3, so I have a bunch of like German stickers on my laptop. And I also have some stickers from various hacker spaces I've been to. I think this is one of my favorite. This is from Hackeriet, which was in Oslo, Norway. And their sticker's really cool. So a lot of these are, this is fast. It's a bunch of people from my student organization when I went to Pasadena City College went on to this club and made sure to, give me some stickers from there. There's Kismet, who was nice enough to send me some stickers. I've got some DEF CON stickers where I met some excellent people. So they're all different places I've been or projects I've been associated with that I'm really proud of. So, yeah.
Nice. Do you want to take a question from the chat, or should I?
Let's do another one from yours.
Cool. I'm going to skip through some of these comments to a question one. This one asks, how did I never hear of Temple OS? I'm downloading it now. This is on your video, April Fool's Temple OS review for the world's most secure operating system.
The
guy who made that is
most
crazy.
secure
Terry
operating
Davis.
system. Yeah, well, he's also dead.
Yeah. All right. I guess that's all we have to say about that.
Yeah, so Temple OS, we did our April Fool's episode on the best hacker operating system, which we called Temple OS. And it was great.
Yeah, that's quite a feat.
The flight simulator was my favorite part. We didn't hack anything on it, but just getting it started itself was certainly something.
Oh, you actually tried the operating system out?
Nice. Oh yeah, we did. We went all the way through it. And actually, Zam, thank you very much for the Temple OS operating system shirt. I have worn it many times, and nobody has ever said anything about it, and it is driving me crazy. I'm going to keep wearing it until someone brings it up. So one question from the chat was, hypothetically speaking, if someone was able to find a rogue cell tower, what would be the next thing to do? So this was actually done by people using, I think it was Wiggle Wi-Fi, or it might have been Kismet, in order to go around and locate cell phone towers that were changing location, disappearing, or hadn't been there before. So this was a project that went on for a while, and they were able to locate rogue cell towers that were being used, and they were stingrays that were being used at the airport and a couple other different locations where in the city where they were doing the study. So honestly, in all likelihood, it would probably be like a police department using like a stingray, or like a federal building using a stingray or something like that. And if you found a rogue cell tower like roving around in your neighborhood or something, it would probably be like the result of some sort of investigation. So don't get swept up in it. I would say leave it, don't try to remove it or something. If you want to report it, you can definitely do that. But if you find a rogue cell tower, odds are it's like a stingray or something. Although it might, sometimes it might be an attack by some other rogue actor. I guess you never know. But because the government is the one that's doing it so often, it kind of makes it like...
Yeah, I was going to say, who are you going to report it to? The government? When they're the ones tracking you?
Sorry. Zam is noticing that it was actually a rouge cell tower. So that means it was just red. If you see a red cell phone tower, then it's not very well disguised. So you can just look at it. You don't need to do anything. But yeah, if it's a rogue cell tower, then it could just be a stingray. You never know. Take the tower. It's expensive. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not going to say yes or no on that one. But yeah, I guess that is something you can do.
Yeah, just harbor this government spy device in your home.
Yeah. Go get the
Give it a place
Stingray
to
and
live.
bring it into your house. I'm sure no one will mind.
Nice.
Thank you for that. All right, what's our next question?
Okay, this one's from Reverse Engineering Private APIs with Postman. Just covered my webcam. This guy's staring right into my soul.
I'm sorry. It's just the way I am when I'm nervous. I don't blink. I mean, but you should cover your webcam. My webcam's usually covered, so I think that's a good idea. It's interesting to know I now have some stuff running on my computer that lets me know when the microphone or the webcam are turned on, just because it's such a common thing to happen. And the microphone gets turned on all the time by random programs. It actually makes me very nervous. So if you have a macOS system and you want to see that, I use Oversight by Patrick Wardle on ObjectiveC.com. Yeah, it's a really interesting tool that lets me make sure no one is spying on me.
Nice.
Because I do get paranoid. All right.
This one's in the same vein as the cell phone towers we're just talking about. I think it might be possible to explode a femtocell, assuming it runs Linux, by building a custom kernel and messing around with the frequencies of the hardware or adding a submodule to the hardware that would be a literal bomb. What? But
Okay,
that would
so
that would require some finesse to pull off.
Yeah, so this was like a
Yeah.
Mr. Robot thing where like they were saying whether or not it was possible to like explode a femtocell. Do I believe with infinite time and money you could write like a compressed like GIF that makes like its own CPU so that it can like write in code that will on a low level explode the femtocell? Sure, if you're an NSO group and you have a budget of like millions of dollars and some of the best hackers on the planet, like yes, you could probably do that. So I concede the point to you, sir. You got me. If you had an infinite budget and the smartest people on the planet, yes, you could probably explode a femtocell.
I think at best you could probably just like confuse the femtocell about what processes it's running by bit banging random things and hardware or whatever. I doubt you can blow it up though. That's quite a stretch.
That's funny. Yeah, so Zam also points out that some camera blockers will actually shatter the screen on a MacBook Pro. That's why I use a sticker, because actually at conferences, like people will give out these branded like little shutters you can open and close, and they will actually break the screen on a MacBook Pro because there's no clearance to do that. I have the admin password to my school's router. What should I do? That'll be fun.
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, with the admin password to the router, you could theoretically do anything. Like, you could set it up to, like, administer remote control. Like, there's lots of stuff you could do. But, of course, you would want to be ethical about it and make sure that it didn't cause any issues. Because if it did, it's pretty easy to audit, like, a router. They log everything, and most of the attacks against them are somewhat noisy. So, even if you're logging in from what you think is like a secure device and you don't think you're going to get caught, just know that if one person overreacts and thinks that they're under attack and calls in resources to audit it, and then you're the one responsible, it would be bad. Yep. As Alex likes to say, crime is illegal, so do keep that in mind.
And it's not permissible by law
to
commit a crime.
All right, so I think this is all we have time for today. Thank you to everybody in the chat for all of your questions / telling us that other content creators are calling us grifters. And again, this will probably be the last stream we have until 2022, so everybody have a happy new year, and we will see you next year. Bye.